Okay. And, I love technology when it works. Okay. So I'm going to right now. Here we go. Okay. So a very, very good evening. And you know what? Let's do this and this will be a fancier shape for the video. Okay. So, as people join, they will join. No, that's not what I was looking for. Where's the participants here? Okay. If something strange happens to the internet, then please bear with me because my computer is being a little bit shaky today. I hope everything will work out smoothly. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for joining us for lesson number 2. Lesson number 2. Welcome to the world of Kabbalah. See what I did there? This is the world of Kabbalah, that you can hear us as well. And we're going to start with around... You hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. We're going to start with a round of gratitude like we usually do. Sylvina, can we start with you today?
What
are you grateful for today?
The grateful for today of being here, like always. Grateful for my kids, grateful for my family, grateful
Very
for
good.
you.
Very, very good. Thank God. Very good. And Auntie Nina, what are you grateful for today? Do you hear us? I'm not sure. Okay. If your book did not yet come, did anyone's book not yet come? Sylvina, I don't think yours arrived yet.
No, the thing is, the camera is frozen on you and also the voice, so I cannot follow the whole.
Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna change this like this. I'm going to switch to phone audio.
See,
we're gonna fix that right now.
It's frozen.
Fix that right now.
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID. Enter your participant ID followed by pound. Otherwise, just press pound. You are in the meeting now. There are 3 participants in the meeting.
Okay. Do you hear me better now? Is this working better?
Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful. Okay. Let's do this. We'll send the meeting ID and password for Joan. I'm not sure why it's not letting her in. So let's go to our messages, message, compose, Joan, here, 833, same phone. I'm sorry about this. Meeting ID is 833-7314. 3448. Password 275959. 275959. Okay. Okay, let's get into it, and as people join, they'll join, and if they're missing, they'll catch up on the recording. We're getting into lesson 2 tonight. So where did we start with? Last week we started with the big idea. What is this course trying to accomplish? And this course, what we're trying to accomplish, it's still coming through clearly, Silvina?
It's okay. Okay, I can hear you. With a little of effort, but it's okay.
Okay. Sorry about that. My computer is making trouble with me today.
It's okay, no problem.
So, wonderful. Let's see if the Kabbalist in me can get it to work.
Yeah.
So, the last week we discussed that one of the central themes of Kabbalah is Seder Hishtalshelut, which is, like we discussed, the chain of events, the process of devolution coming from God to us. And that is one of the big ideas that Kabbalah is explaining, is how we come from God to us. Was that clear?
Mm-hmm.
Very good. And then we discussed how Kabbalah is the architecture of existence, and that same architecture within our souls. And one big idea that we shared last week is that creation doesn't happen in one step. In this course, we're starting from the bottom up. It's a lot easier because we understand ourselves a lot more than we understand God. So instead of going from God to us, we start from us and we're climbing back up to get to God. So last week we spoke about Biyah, which was Bria, Yetzira, Asiya. The world of Bria is when we have God plus one, but it's still completely the perspective of the source. Then we had Yetzira, where it's self-aware, but still fully dependent on, connected with the source. And then Asiya is when we have a complete independence and become our own identity. And these three worlds parallel in human terms to the three soul garments, which are thought, which is very much connected with us, speech, which is less connected but still dependent on us, and then our actions, which can create things that are completely independent of ourselves. That was all last week. And last week we ended off saying that because the garments are separate from ourselves, so we can decide how we're going to show up no matter what we're feeling on the inside. We can change the way we think, we can change the way we speak, we can change what we do. And we also saw how important it is to make sure that we're going with all three garments, that when we're planning something, we start with the thought, we speak it over with friends, and then we get to doing it. And we finished at the end with the morning ritual of saying, we start off with thinking about God in the morning, then we say Modani, and then we wash our hands with for the morning. Looks like some people are trying to come in, and it's not working. Try again now. Okay. So that was all last week. That was our last week's session, and here we are ready for starting today. Today is really all about storytelling, but before we get to the storytelling, we have to start with our customary bad joke. And today's is, did you hear about the mystic who invested in startups? He wanted to be a venture capitalist, and he wanted to turn private equity owners into prophets. Right? The Kabbalists wanted to turn the private equity owners into Kabbalists. Anyway, so today is really about a story. We're going to tell a story. It's going to be storytelling. We're going to be listening to what is the story of Atzilut. Atzilut is the highest of the four worlds. That's what we're going to be discussing today. Because the big discussion of today is going to be Atzilut, A-T-Z-I-L-U-T. Atzilut is going to be the topic of today's discussion. We're going to be talking about the soul itself. We're going to learn about the origins of definition and discover what makes the world and ourselves tick. So it is going to get a little bit deep. And if it gets above your head or it's too deep, then please let me know. And or you could just write it out and wait till the end. Everything hopefully is going to tie together very nicely and make sense. Tonight's class is going to take place in 4 acts. Act number 1, who's the wagon driver now? Act number 2, can God have a bad day? Act number 3, the genesis of numbers. And act number 4, your soul reading. So buckle up. This is about to get mind-blowing. And again, please, if you have any questions or any discussions, any feedback that you'd like to give, please dive in and ask. The first question that I want to start with tonight is, why is people not being able to get in on Zoom? Followed by, do you know your purpose in life? Anybody feel, not what gives you meaning and purpose, but do you know why you were put down here, what your mission is, what God has in store for you? Anyone? Not too heavy of a question.
Oof, that's tough. Yeah.
So to explain this, I want to start with a powerful story that was told over by the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson. I'm going to read it. It's going to be page number 38 if you have your student textbook, and it's called Lost Souls. Not sure. You got the email with the new link, didn't you, right? Sylvina, that's how you found the new link, right?
Yeah, with the last email that you sent.
With the last email, perfect.
Do you
Okay.
want me to send it to you?
No, I got it. And we'll just see, because like 1 or 2 people keep popping up in the waiting room, and then I click admitting, but by the time they get in, it kicks them out again. I'm not sure why.
But
But hopefully it'll work.
You know, so the voice is a little, it's like, I don't want to see blurry, but it's not very clear if you are talking kind of fast, and because of my ear and my, so if you, so it's not 100% clear, the voice, but I can still follow you. Okay.
Okay, that's very good, very important for me to know. Let me see what happens if I do this.
So is my voice clear for you, or?
I'm hearing you clearly. Basically, because my computer was making problems, I joined with my phone. Let me see if I can switch back. Okay, is this working over here? Yes, and test. Why can't I? Maybe if I hang up on the phone side, it will give me this. Good. Unmute.
That's perfect. Yeah. It's like I was under the water before.
Oh, okay. Okay. Try again now. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is working better.
Yeah.
Much better. Okay, very good, because we were about to say a story. So this story is how we're going to dive into tonight's discussion. A wealthy businessman and his coachman arrived in a city one time on Friday afternoon. The rich man, and if the voice gets choppy again, please do let me know again, okay? Rich man was settled at the best hotel in town, and the coachman went off to his humble lodgings. Both of them got washed and got dressed up for Shabbos. And then they set off for shul for the evening prayers. On his way to shul, the businessman came across a large wagon that had swerved off the road and was stuck in a ditch. Rushing to help a fellow in need, the businessman climbed down into the ditch and began pushing and pulling at the wagon together with its hapless driver. But for all his finesse at handling the most challenging of business deals, when it came to extracting a wagon and a team of horses from a muddy ditch, our businessman was hopelessly out of his depth. After struggling for an hour in the knee-deep mud,
Se cortó.
say again?
Yeah, it was cut.
Oy vey. It was cut, but is it better now?
Now, yeah, now it's good.
Now it's better? All right. Okay. Finally, he dragged his limping body to the synagogue, arriving a scant minute before the start of Shabbos. Jones, good to have you in.
Hello. That telephone number was not your number, by the way, to use. I finally realized. And I couldn't get on, but I'm glad I'm listening. Thank you. Hello?
Yeah, it seemed like the computer not working properly.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no,
Oh,
not my
there.
number. The number, same number as the Tuesday. Yes. It got rid of me again? Hi, Vay.
It's getting frozen all the time.
You hear me now?
It gets frozen. Yeah. So now you're good.
Now we're good. This is not supposed to happen here with this fancy building with the fancy internet.
Some fancy schmancy internet, huh?
Yeah, fancy schmancy internet. This is what we got, L'chaim. Okay, so the first guy, the bit and the wagon out of the mud, and he ended up battered and bruised, and he didn't even able to help. Meanwhile, the coachman arrived early to. No.
Wow.
Okay, let's try this. Let me try joining from my phone, seeing if that's any good. Switch. Okay, do you all see me here? Loud and clear?
Hear you.
Okay, good. So let me do like this. I'm just gonna, it might not be perfect, but it will be better than nothing. And hopefully this will, okay. I'm super sorry about that.
No.
Set this phone up in a way that we can see everyone. Opa. Okay, you see me and hear me now?
Yeah. Perfect.
Okay. So hopefully like this will be good.
Yes, it will.
Put it a little bit like this so that the light isn't bothering. Okay. So the businessman tried helping the wagon driver and got stuck in the mud and was not able to do anything useful. Meanwhile, the coachman arrived early to the synagogue and sat down to recite a few chapters of Psalm. At the synagogue, he found a group of wandering paupers, and being blessed with a most generous nature, the coachman invited them all to share in his Shabbos meal. He invited them for the meal on Friday night. When the shamus, who the synagogue sexton, approached the poor and homeless to arrange meal placements for them with the town's householders, as is customary in Jewish communities, he received the same reply from them all. Thank you, but I have already been invited for the Shabbos meal. Unfortunately, however, the coachman's budget was hardly equal to his generous heart. It would be most difficult to believe that his dozen guests left his table with more than a shadow of a meal in their hungry stomachs. Thus, the coachman, with his 20 years of experience in pulling wagons out of mud holes, took it upon himself to feed a small army, while the wealthy businessman, whose Shabbos meal leftovers could have easily fed every hungry man within a 10-mile radius, floundered about in a ditch. Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak of Lubavitch told the story and explained its lesson. Every soul is entrusted with a mission unique to her alone, and is granted the specific aptitudes, talents, and resources necessary to excel in her ordained role. One must take care not to become one of those lost souls who wander haplessly through life, trying their hand at every field of endeavor except for that which is truly and inherently their own. So, okay, did that story come through clearly? Okay, I'm not sure what's going on over here. Were you able to hear me clearly with that story?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. All right. I need a better prop over here. Yeah, they come with a stand for my phone. See if that will work. Ay. Spending all this time on the technology, we won't be able to get the class done properly. Oh, there we go. Is this a good place to put my phone? No. What about like? I'm so sorry about this. There we go. Okay, do you hear me well like this? Okay. So here we had a story of the two people, the businessman who was very rich and he tried to take the wagon out of the ditch. And we had the poor coachman who would have been very easily taking the horses out of the ditch. And he ended up inviting these people to his Shabbos meal where they left hungry. So the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson, says that these people were wandering haplessly through life and trying everything besides for what was theirs. So here's my question. Question number one. Did the wealthy man do a mitzvah by trying to get that coach out of the mud?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, say again, Joan?
I think so. At least he certainly tried to do a mitzvah.
Yeah, he definitely tried to do a mitzvah. He was definitely doing something good. He went, he saw someone who was in trouble, and he went to help him out. Let me ask you another question. What about the wagon driver who invited these poor people to his meal? Did they do a mitzvah?
Totally generous. Yes.
Yeah. So these people were both doing good things. So what's the problem?
They weren't doing what was best suited for themselves. They didn't
Very
give
good.
them
So
that
there's
much.
no real problem over here, right? They were both doing something good, but in terms of purpose, in terms of sole purpose, they missed the plot. They lost the point. To know what our purpose is, we first must know our soul. Who is my soul? What is my soul? And why am I here? Which leads us to act number two. Act number two is, can God have a bad day? Second part of our lesson. And here's where we're really going to start getting deep. To gain this intimate knowledge of our unique soul character and our destiny, we need to first look at our soul spiritual parallel, the next world up. So if we said we're going to speak about God and we're going to speak about us, it's a two-way street. The same way how looking at us, we can learn about God. Learning about God, we can learn about ourselves. So we're going to get to the next level over here. The higher world, one up from Atzilut. So I don't think either of you got your books yet. But in our map, we have these blue circles are the ones that we were looking at last time. And over here, this map of the 10 Sfirot, that is the world of Atzilut. And that is what we're going to be discussing today. Once we understand what is Atzilut, then we can analyze our own souls. So let's begin by examining a few verses that speak of God.
Spell that, please. Azilat or whatever it was.
A, T as in Tom, Z as in zebra, I-L-U-T as in Tom. So, we are going to turn to page number 42, and we're going to look at text number 3 on page number 42, which reads, this is a verse from Proverbs. I want you to think and to bear in mind, because at the end of these three, there we go, you see me a little better now. At the end of these two and three texts that we're about to read, I'm going to ask you a question. But I'm going to tell you now already what the question is so you can know what you're going to answer. The question is going to be, does God possess definable qualities? So let's read text number 3. God, with wisdom, founded the earth. With understanding, established the heavens. His knowledge, the depths were split. And text number 4, which is from Chronicles on page number 43. Unto you, God, is greatness and power and beauty and triumph and splendor. For all in heaven and on earth is yours. Unto you, God, is kingship. So, based on a reading of text number 3 and text number 4, I'm going to ask you the question. Does God possess definable qualities?
According to those texts, yes.
Joan already knows what's coming.
Oh, I don't.
According to those texts, yes.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
According to those texts, yes. According to those texts, we read very clearly that God has knowledge, wisdom, understanding, greatness, power, beauty, triumph, splendor, kingship. Okay, now let's look at text number 5. Text number 5 is from the Maharal of Prague, Rabbi Yehuda Lowy, the one who created the Golem of Prague. He was a great Kabbalist. Here is what he writes. But before we get to him, let me ask you, based on what you know of God, which our God is undescribable, unknowable, and beyond any limitations, that would be a problem. Let's read this along in text number 5, page 44. Our sages purposefully refer to God as Kadosh, the Holy One, blessed be He, as opposed to the Intelligent One, blessed be He. For God's true self is unknowable. All that we know about God is that He is detached from and beyond every form of physicality and any existing entity. It is therefore appropriate to refer to God as the Holy One, for the term Kadosh describes an entity that is transcendent. Indeed, God is Peshitut, the ultimate abstract simplicity. So, we are going to explain and expound on this very much over the next few minutes that we have here. But before we do so, based on this text, God very clearly has no limitations, has no descriptions whatsoever. So what's the truth? Does God possess attributes like we saw in text number 3 and text number 4? Or is God completely above all forms and definitions of limitation like we saw in text number 5? What's the answer? What do you think? We're Jewish over here. What's the answer going to be?
Yes and yes.
Very good. We know the story. This is like the oldest story in the book. Let me see if there's a way for me to prop this phone up. Ah. Uh-oh. Did I lose you all? No, we're here. Let me see if there's a way to prop up the phone that you can still see me and not just the lights. Right. What's going on over here? They say in Australia, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I don't know what happened now to my Zoom. There you all are. Okay. Put this like this. This like this.
Are you in Australia?
No, I'm not in Australia.
Ah.
I'm here in my office, my fancy office with fancy internet and a fancy computer. Okay, so there's the famous story of the one who the two people who come to the rabbi with a complaint, and the first one gives his complaint and he said this and this and this and that, and the rabbi looks at him and says, you know what, you're right. Well, then the second guy starts talking and he gives his side of the story, and the rabbi looks at him and says, you know what, you're right. And then his rebbitzin, who was sitting in the other room, calls out, but rabbi, how can they both be right? And he says, you know what, you're right too. So does God have limitations and qualities? Does God not have limitations and qualities? How is it possible for God to have limitations and qualities? The answer is you're all right. God is beyond definition. And God expresses himself through divine attributes. What's the best way to approach this, especially with how much time we have left? Okay. You ever saw these new tiny remote control cars? Yeah. You ever saw a little remote control car with a tiny little motor inside?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
If not, you could imagine it. Okay. Then you have a jet engine. A jet engine on a very big plane. Which one is better?
Depending for what?
Oh, very good. Very good. Okay. That leads us to our next example. There was a man whose name was Albert Einstein. We'll call him Al. No, just kidding. Albert Einstein was a very, very brilliant man. Imagine he was invited to a high school to speak to high school students and to discuss with them his revelation and the theory of relativity. So if he's going to go there and start speaking on his level, what do you think is going to happen? You think the kids are going to understand anything?
No.
Not at all. Not at all. So if he wants to relate to them, he has two ways. Number one is he could just relate to them and talk to them about how his childhood was, where he grew up, show him a picture of him hanging out with his buddies, a picture of him sticking out his tongue, a very, very comical picture of his. He could just make schmooze around and do nothing. Or he could think in himself very deeply and come up with one point that he wants to give over to these kids. And think of a way to dumb it down and dumb it down and dumb it down into terms that they can relate to. And give it over to them in such a way that perhaps one day they can think about that point that he gave them and expand on it and expound on it and learn more about it and think more about it until they can come to a realization of what he was actually trying to tell them. Now, let's say he did that. and he dumbed down his idea and he gave them this tiny little perspective about his theory of relativity. Is that a step up for him, or is that a step down for him? To give over
It's
his
up.
message. Dr. Silvina is saying it's a step up. Why are you saying it's a step up?
Because he tried to reach to the kids at some way to make them understand what he wants to say or transmit.
Very good. Very, very, very good. I was not expecting that. Beautiful. That's exactly perfect. Because, I mean, if you look at it, obviously, you would think this is a very big step down for him. Because instead of what he could be doing, thinking and philosophizing and pontificating, he's sitting here and focusing on just one small idea. But the big idea here of tonight, or one of them, is that the very fact that he could teach those students who were on such a low level brings out his greatness.
That is step sideways.
Sorry?
How about that it's a step sideways?
Step sideways. So the point here is that he has such a broad mind that it can even reach those on a lower level. Think about it this way. You have plenty of people who understand something, but they can't explain it to anyone else. My wife, Nechama, had a friend in first grade or second grade who told all of the classmates that she's able to read, but only quietly. If you have someone who is brilliant, let's say you have Kabbalah, but you can only explain Kabbalah in the language of Kabbalah, then you don't really understand it. It's not yours. You haven't owned it. You don't grasp it. You're speaking the jargon of whatever you heard. Perhaps you have some understanding of it. But if you really knew it and it really became yours, you'd be able to give it over to someone else as well. So many professors, which are not such great professors, can teach people who have a very strong understanding and foundation in the subject. But an incredible professor is someone who can even explain something to someone who is on a much lower level than themselves. Is that making sense? And this audacious truth is applicable to God as well. Because you see, if we would say that God is infinite and God is undefinable, then we are taking away from his perfection. And we are saying that our God is only unlimited. Our God is only infinite. If we are saying that God cannot be finite, then we are putting a limit on him. We are saying that he is limited to the infinite. Does that make any sense? Good. So let's look over here, text number 8. We're going to skip a few. We might come back if we have time. This is from Rabbi Meir Ibn Gabbai in his book Avodat HaKodesh, great Kabbalistic work. The Infinite One is perfect without any flaw. Should you assert that he has infinite power but lacks power of finitude, you deny his perfection. If God is stuck only in the abstract, only as a non-defined infinity, then that, as ironic as it sounds, but that itself is a limitation. And we're saying that God is limited to the space of the infinite. But if God is truly a perfect infinity, that means he also possesses the power of limitation as well. So God must have both the infinite and the finite. How does that work? We have 4 weeks, another 4.5 weeks to explain. We got 45 minutes today and another 4 sessions ahead of us. And by the time we end up there, I hope you have a clarity on this, of how it happens. But the bottom line, the first bottom line that we need to figure out and that we need to come to terms with is that God is as comfortable being infinite as he is comfortable being finite. God is as comfortable being finite as he is being infinite. God is as comfortable being defined as he is being abstract, and God is as comfortable being abstract as he is being defined. And this is what the Zohar teaches us in text number 6. Text number 6, this is from the Zohar. You are one, but not in a numerical sense. You are exalted above all the exalted ones, hidden from all the hidden ones. No thought can grasp you whatsoever. You are the one who has brought forth 10 ornaments, which we call the 10 Sephirot, to direct concealed worlds and revealed worlds. So here we have it. You are one who has brought forth the 10 Sephirot. So is God one, or is God have a personality? God is abstract, yet God created his own personality. How? We'll talk about next week. Today, or maybe in 2 weeks' time. Today, what we're going to talk about is what is that personality that God created for himself. Does that sound good? So, is God beyond definition, or is God very much a part of definition? The answer is both. The same God that is infinite and perfect also contains the power of finite expression. Just like Einstein has this big idea, and the way that he contracted it very small in order to, to prepare it for his class. So the Sephirot, the 10 attributes, are 10 specific, defined, limited modalities of God's expression. They are part of God's infinite being, but they are the way that God brings that into definition. Is that clear? Yes? Okay. I hope I'm doing a good job.
Yeah.
God is infinite, yet God is just very comfortable being finite as well. Okay. So now I knew I forgot something at home. A black piece of paper and a pair of scissors. But we'll figure this out without it. We can get more abstract. You guys don't need the props, even though they're fun. So, next stage of tonight's discussion. These 10 Sephirot, the 10 attributes, this chart that we looked at over here that we're going to be talking about tonight. These top 10 attributes over there. These 10 Sephirot. Last week we discussed about creation, and they said that everything of creation is in the worlds of Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya. And we're saying that the world of Atzilut, that we're discussing today, is not creation. Why is that? That's the next thing that I want to discuss. That Atzilut is part of God. Atzilut is not a creation. Last week we spoke about creating space and bringing out definition in a way that is other than God. It's godly, but it's not really so one with God. It's separate from God, and it's God creating a space in which we can feel independent. However, the world of Atzilut is one with God. And that is why the Sephirot of Atzilut are not considered creations, but part of the godly realm. Let's look at text number 9a. Text number 9a, this is from the third Lubavitcher Rebbe, third Chabad Rebbe. The first of the Sefirot, Chochmah, cannot be termed a creation, God forbid, because it is literal godliness. Rather, God condensed his light to the extent that he could manifest himself in Chochmah and the other attributes. The intellectual attributes are his attributes. The kindness is his kindness, and so forth. God's wisdom, God's knowledge, God's understanding, God's kindness, God's kingship, God's splendor, God's beauty, these are not creations. These are God himself. But wait, didn't I just say that God himself is undefinable? Didn't I just say that God himself is removed from all kind of limitation or description? I did. But at the same time, God created within himself, not a creation, but God put forth within himself these ideas, not as a creation that is outside of him, but as a persona that is part of him. So, do I have any colored paper here that I could use? No, I don't. Okay, let's visualize this for a minute. Imagine I had a blank white paper. Are there any numbers on that paper?
No.
No, no numbers on that paper. Now, say I took a colored paper, a black paper, and I cut out the number 10 in big bubble letters on that black paper, and I held it over the white paper. Now, does the white paper have a number on it?
But yes.
Now we already have to think. It does, but is it really? Because we can take away the black paper and then the white paper has no more numbers.
Yes. True.
Right? So the number comes from the white paper, but it is really the number of the black paper. It's coming from an external or an imposed limitation on the white paper. Let's think of another example. This is an example that I came up with that I like a lot better. What makes the color white? If you take a white light and you shine it through a prism, what are you going to get?
White light.
If you put it, who here is familiar with retraction? What's called refraction. We learned about it in 7th grade, right? Refraction, if you put a light through a prism, the light refracts and splits into all the colors. Right?
Mm-hmm. The prism.
Yeah. So, if within the white light, you have all different colors of lights, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now let's flip this the other way around, and whoever here is an artist can let us know. If you take all the colors and you mix them together, what color will you get?
Black.
Brown.
Brown, black. So while all the colors come within white, right? You can take all the colors individually, one at a time out of white. But if you mix them all together, you don't get white. You get something completely different. So is white a makeup of all the colors? No, white is not a makeup of all the colors. But white does have all the colors inside it. So white, let's say, is a metaphor for God, the white light. Let's use a white light for the metaphor of God. Does the white light have any colors? No, it's just a white light. It's not colored lights. But if the white lights decide that they want to take out a purple color, a violet color, a green color, a blue color, magenta, however it's called. If you want to take out these individual colors from white, are you able to? Yes, you are. But is white the sum total of those colors? No, it's not. So too with God. So too with God. God is infinite. God is removed from all definition. Yet God found within himself these ideas of the 10 Sefirot, the wisdom, the knowledge, the understanding, the kindness, the severity. So God is infinite, but he created within himself. He emanated from himself, from his infinitude, he procured and produced finite ideas, finite character traits. So with that, let's look at text number 9b. Text number 9b. The Sefirot are called Atzilut, not Bria. The term Atzilut in the Torah means emanation, which indicates that the Sefirot are an emanation from God's infinity, not an independent creation. This provides us with a second reason for referring to the Sefirot as Atzilut, from the etymological root Eitzel, which means together with God. So it's emanated from God, and it is also together with God. Similar to if you have, you see the light that's shining on my head, right? Shining on my forehead, there's a light. Where's that light coming from? It's coming from either the light on top of me or my computer screen. It's not its own light. It's emanating from the source of light. It's not its own being. So these 10 energies exist within the otherwise undefinable and shapeless divine realm. So this explains the distinction between Atzilut, that we're learning about this week, the 10 Sefirot, and the lower worlds of Biyah, that we learned about last week. Biyah is the space of otherness. Atzilut is the space of God. So the way that I want to put this, and hopefully to make it clear, I just want to make sure. Okay. So I'm going to say this here, even though it might fit better a little later, but I think that we're ready for it because I think it's very important. Last week we spoke that God, the reason why God wanted to create a world is because he wanted to have a relationship with us. He wanted to have a relationship with an other. In order to have a relationship, you need to have an other. And that's why he created the world's biyah, the worlds of otherness, the worlds of creating an independent space where we can be separate from God, as it were. God forbid to say separate, but we can feel separate from God. A world in which we feel separate from God, in which we feel independent. And that's what we spoke about last week. How did he do that? The worlds of Biyah. Where we're holding today, what we're going to learn about today, is that God wanted us to have a relationship with him. God wanted us to have a relationship with him. How can we have a relationship with an infinite being? We can't. Therefore, in order for us, in order for there to be an other, he created the world, biyah, so that there can be a separate entity, us, who feel like we are separate, who feel like we are independent. And now, the point is for us to have a relationship with him. But in order for us to have a relationship with him, he has to first create a him that we can have a relationship with. That is Atzilut. Atzilut is the him that we are able to have a relationship with. God created a personality for himself. God created a persona for himself. God created character traits within himself that we can relate to. So back to our parallels between God and ourselves. The same way how I wanted to actually start with asking this question, but I'm going to ask it now. A question for the crowd. What is a soul?
It's a light.
A light? Anything else? Anyone else? What is a soul?
Expression of God.
It's energy.
Energy, a piece of God. Very good. Now let me ask you, where does your personality come from?
Environment, influence.
Okay.
Experience.
Okay, but what about like the way you relate to the world? Meaning, what part of you is relating to the world? The influence is influencing what? The way you react. What is that? The way you react to external stimuli. Something happens to you and you react, right? So maybe that is conditioned by your environment, by your childhood traumas or whatever, or your childhood positive thoughts and positive interactions. But what is all of that shaping and influencing? What is your character?
Oh,
Where does that come from?
God.
So the truth is that also comes from your soul. Your character comes from your soul. Your personality comes from your soul. And we're going to learn more about that later. Hopefully we'll have time to get into it in depth. Your personality comes from your soul. So wait, is your soul like this light or this life force, this energy, this undefinable being? Or is your soul what gives you your interactions on a day-to-day basis with everyone else? Your personality, your character traits, your capability, your talents, etc. That all comes from your soul as well. It's the same thing, just like we're talking about God. Yes, your soul is infinite. Your soul is a piece of God. But your soul also brings forth a specific character for you. The difference between us and God is that God gets to choose what he wants that character to be. We don't get to choose our character. God chose it for us. God chose our personality. God created us in a specific way. But just like God has his personality that he created within himself, we also have a personality that our soul creates for us. Does that make sense? Does that kind of bring things together a little?
Made it worse.
What did you say? It made it worse?
Yes.
Oh, okay, I hope we'll be able to pull this all together.
Ruined it for me.
Oy. Some extra notes actually on my phone while I was driving to pick up the kids from school. No, I wasn't while I was driving, but I was thinking about a few things that I wrote down over here. Yeah. Okay, good. I mentioned all the things that I wanted to. Perfect. So
For other people.
the world, the infinite part of God, we're going to get to more. Actually, next week's class is titled "The Infinite Light." We're going to talk more about the infinite light next week. Today, we're talking about this personality that God created for himself. So I want to make sure that that part is clear. God created, before creating us, he created within himself a him that we can relate to. God created a personality within himself, and that is Atzilut, and that is the 10 Sefirot. Does that make sense? Can we handle that? Good. The undefined part of God, the undefinable, unlimited part of God, we're going to get into a deep delve into next week. For today, the most important part is, yes, God is undefined, but within that non-definition, God created within that. God pulled forth from his lack of definition. God pulled forth a persona. God pulled forth a personality and character traits. Like the example of taking a white light and refracting it through a prism and ending up with 7 different colors. God took his infinite light, and from that infinite light, it's not a separate thing, it's not a creation. It's part of God himself, but he created within himself a finiteness, a describable portion of himself, a portion of himself that we can relate to, that is defined, that is character. Is that clear, Joan?
Yes, thank you.
Yay. Okay, perfect. Auntie Nina, is that clear as well? We can't hear you though. No, still not. I see you're talking, but I can't hear you. But we love you, Auntie Nina. So, okay. So now that we know that God created a character for himself, what is this character that God created? What are the spirit and how do they show up in their defined form? So let's look at the Sefer chart, and I wish that your books would have already come for you all, because that would make everyone's life a lot easier.
Page is it though?
Okay, but they didn't yet come. So we're going to talk about them.
What page?
What you're going to see is that you have over here, we have 3 lines. We have the right, we have the left, and we have the middle. In general, the right is giving. The right side is just giving. Moving from yourself, flowing outward. The left side is restraint, pulling back, holding back. And the middle line is kind of a mixture of the two. It psychologically, it's the left side holding back, but behaviorally, it acts in a giving manner. And I'll explain what I mean. If we go on text number 11, okay, and we'll see what we have time for. Page number 50 is a beautiful ladder of prayer, which you can look at. I very strongly suggest it. Text number 11. The attribute of chesed, which is kindness, loving kindness, seeks to provide without limit. Even if the recipient is in no need of pity, lacks nothing, and faces no difficulty. Just giving, giving, giving. The attribute of gevura, which is restraint, seeks to exercise restraint when providing to others or to refrain from giving altogether. The attribute of compassion seeks to pity whomever is in need. It is the mediating attribute between gevura and chesed. For that reason, it is called tiferet, beauty, akin to a multicolored garment that provides harmonious beauty. So what's the real beauty is to be able to see and understand that somebody is deserving or not deserving, and to make a calculation and say, you know what, have some rahmanis on them. Be kind to them anyways, even though they're not deserving. And if you look on page number 53, when you get your book, you'll see the breakup of what the actual 10 Sefirot are. Now, we're going to get to something that's going to bring us back here soon. But tying this back now, we've spoken a lot about God. We're going to start speaking a little bit more about ourselves. We've got about another 20 minutes, and let's see if we can get this done. In text number 12, Hillel and Shammai were great sages, great Torah sages. And we're going to look at them and we're going to ask, which side do we think they come from? The right giving side or the left restraining side? A non-Jewish man once approached Shammai and told him, I would like you to convert me to Judaism on the condition that you teach me the entire Torah while I stand on one foot. How does that sound? You think you could do that? Learn the entire Torah standing on one foot? Shammai used the builder's measuring tool he was holding to chase the fellow away. He chased him out of the school. Well, the prospective convert then approached Hillel with the same request. Hillel converted him, telling him, whatever you hate being done to you, do not do to your fellow. That is the entire Torah. The rest is commentary. Now go and learn the rest. So let me ask you, Shammai, who chased him away, do you think that he was coming from the Gavura side, the restraint, the left, or the right side, the giving side, the Chesed side? Hillel, who chased him away, what side is that?
Back, left.
Left, restraint, holding back. And Hillel, who went ahead and taught him, was
Right.
the right, giving. Whether this guy is deserving or not deserving, I'm going to teach him Torah anyways, even though he's a nudnik. We all know what a nudnik is. He's a troublemaker. Even there's a troublemaker coming to make not good requests over here. But Hillel gave anyways. He's just giving and giving and giving. So, before we finish up, just one more reason why we need to have these Sefirot before we can create the world of others. So the main reason that I gave is that God wanted to have a persona that we can relate to. Another reason is because if you don't have these ideas within God, you cannot have them once you come out of God. Just like a stamp can only engrave that which is engraved in it, God cannot create in the worlds of Biyah that which he does not have within himself. If you didn't understand that, don't worry, we skip over it. But based on this, we see that the Sefirot, the 10 Sefirot, are actually the building blocks of all limited physical matter, because that is the beginning of God's limitation within himself. So anything that's limited comes from those 10 Sefirot of God. And that's why you'll see Kabbalists actually trace different elements in our world to respective spiritual source in Chesed, Gevura, etc. And now we get back to the beginning where we started. Remember, we started, my question to you was, do you know what your purpose in life is? And we said that story of the two people who got mixed up and did the job that was meant for someone else? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Your soul reading. There's another major idea conveyed by this parallel between Atzilut and the soul. Just like Atzilut contains the 10 Sefirot, 10 attributes, our soul also possesses 10 soul powers. but each one of us has a dominant soul power. These 10 Sefirot, we have those that are more dominant and those that are more dormant. Every person. Just like you ever saw a DJ has this massive mixer and he can change and fine tune every single little sound, every single little frequency. So to our soul, the makeup, it's almost like our soul print. You have a handprint, you also have a soul print. And your soul print is different than everyone else. There is no one else. There is no one else who has the same soul print that you have. And your soul print is made up by your dominant sephira, your dominant attribute of these 10. Your makeup of and your spiritual makeup of these 10 sephirot is like no one else in the entire universe. No one that has been and no one that will be. And if you liked last week's line, if I am I because I am I and you are you because you are you, tonight there's another one on this line. I think it's from Mark Twain, but it's such a good line. You should try your best to be yourself because everyone else has already been taken.
That's good.
Try your
Can
best
you
to be
repeat that?
yourself because everyone else has already been taken. But who are yourself? What is yourself? Our dominant soul power plays into our unique role and destiny. So if we look back and we look at Hillel and Shammai, what do you think was Hillel, the one who invited him in and gave him and taught him? What do you think his dominant soul power was? His dominant soul power was chesed, the loving kindness and just giving. And Shammai, the one who chased this man away and didn't want to give him anything, his dominant soul power was gevura, the strictness, the severity, the restraint. So by looking at our personality, we can figure out a little bit about what our dominant powers are. Yes, we include all of them, and we are all of them. We're all giving and we're all restraining. We're all empathetic. We're all connecting to those that are outside of us. We're all have a certain victorious streak in ourselves that wants to conquer and maintain that which we have. We all have everything. The question is, what are the strongest ones? We each have our own individual soul orientation. So before we get to a little exercise, which will be a lot easier for you to do for homework once your book comes, and if you're writing down notes, that's a very good thing for you to do, is to take that little Kabbalistic aptitude test. But we're going to look for here for text number 14. Text number 14. It is well known that souls are rooted in the 10 Sefirot. By examining our personalities, it is possible to identify the individual Sefirah that serves as the root of each person's soul. We readily observe that intellect is dominant in some individuals, whereas emotions are dominant in others. This phenomenon indicates that some souls are rooted in the intellectual Sefirot of Atzilut, and others in its emotive Sefirot. As far as individual Sefirot are concerned, we notice that some individuals display a dominating strain of Netzach. Netzach is victory. And others a dominating trait of Chesed, which is kindness. And so if we go on page number 61, where is it? If you go on page number 61, you can take a Chesed Gevurah scale to go through generous, kind, loving, extroverted, optimistic, forgiving, and put yourself on a scale of 1 to 5 over how dominant you think each of those are on yourself. And then if we look on page number 62, and we go through and circle all the things that we feel like we are, and all those that speak the most to us. And then, once we look at the ones that speak the most to us, it is not only abstract to figure out an aptitude test for yourself, but back to the beginning of today's class. This is going to be like they have palm readings. I'm going to teach you how to do your own soul reading. Identifying who we are can be integral to identifying what we are meant to be doing. Our soul's personality is the key to our spiritual mission. So, let's look at text number 16 over here. God provides each individual with a unique set of abilities. Each one of us must pursue our divine mission in accordance with our specific abilities and potentials, for they indicate our personal responsibilities in life. Say, for example, that God gave you significant intellectual abilities. It is your duty to utilize those abilities to study Torah and invest all your energy into this endeavor. True, you are required to observe the other mitzvot and commit yourself to all obligations shared by all Jews. Nevertheless, since you have a unique aptitude for Torah study, you need to be extra particular and passionate about it. Or, if you are graced with strong emotional sensitivity, it is your duty to utilize this sensitivity to show love and care to others. This includes sharing Judaism's rich heritage with Jews who never had the opportunity to learn about it, and inspiring them with love for God and love for the Torah. Again, you are also obligated to study Torah and observe the other mitzvot, but your main passion should be reserved for the above stated activities, as indicated by the very fact that you have unique abilities in this area. Perhaps you are pragmatic by nature. You know how to get things done. In that case, your duty is to achieve practical projects. If there is a need to establish an institution for Jewish education, for example, it is your calling to put your abilities into practice by actively pursuing every effort to open the institution. If there is a need to solve a particular challenge that inhibits the student's performance, the building is too frigid, the dorm requires cooling, make it your duty to solve the challenge expeditiously. Or perhaps you can effectively alleviate the plight of the poor and homeless, and the like. Certainly, you must also study Torah and act with emotional sensitivity, but your overarching purpose is to get things done. And a little disclaimer over here, that just because we identify our soul strength and we're supposed to work to leverage it in our life work, that doesn't mean that we can ignore our weaknesses. The opposite is true. Because from our strengths, we learn what our battles should, from our strengths, we learn what our focus should be. And from our weakness, we learn what our battles should be. Just as, almost as important as focusing on our strengths, those things that we are great at, and making sure that we're that we're pursuing those and cultivating them and realizing that that's a big part of our mission in life. Our strong weaknesses, our major weaknesses, I should say, strong weaknesses, our major weaknesses are also something that we should focus on. And here, this is a powerful example that we see from Shammai, actually, if we look at text number 18. Shammai, the one who we said came all the way from the left, the one who was very restraining, the one who chased the man away, the one who came all the way from the limiting side, the one who did not want to give at all. The Mishnah tells us that Shammai would say three things. There were three things that Shammai used to say all the time. This is later on in life. He learned from Hillel. And the three things are, number one, make your Torah study a permanent fixture of your daily schedule. Say little and do much. And look at this third thing that he used to say all the time. And receive every human with a pleasant countenance. Look at that. He learned to be kind from Hillel. So yes, focus on your strengths. Focus on what you're good at. Focus on your dominant Sefirah. But also, don't forget about your weaknesses. Work on them as well. Okay, there's one more point that I want to get to before we conclude. I think we'll have enough time to get there. Yes, God willing. Uh, um, so, everything that we learned about the macrocosm with the world of Atzilut and the 10 Sefirot, that also exists within our souls as we've discussed the last half hour. So after all, we are very much created in the divine image, like we spoke last week. So just like there is Biyah and Atzilut, so too there is the garments of the soul and the soul itself. And we declare this truth every single morning in our morning prayers. Let's look at text number 13. Text number 13, we read every morning in the morning prayers. Now, beautiful. Elokai, my God, the soul that you have placed within me is pure. You created it, you formed it, you breathed it into me. God created our soul, which is pure, which is infinite, and he put it in my body. And then from there, he created these garments of Biyah. He created it, you formed it, you breathed it. And we recite this prayer every morning. Number one, to remind ourselves that despite all the craziness in our lives, at its deepest core, our soul is pure, holy, and one with God. It is not solely of this world. It is far, far above it. And number two is being that the soul originates from a dimension beyond the world. It has the ability to uplift and transform the world, since it is not stuck inside. And in those moments when we remind ourselves of our pure roots, the essence of our soul is not something that's beyond us. To connect with the infinite is not something that is strange from us. It is just connecting with who we really are. And when we remind ourselves of that, we are living in Atzilut once again. So, in conclusion, that was a very heavy lesson, and thank you for sticking through it. We learned about Atzilut. Although it is called a world, it is radically different than Biyah. Biyah are worlds of separation, otherness. Atzilut is godliness. It's the ability that God has to project limitation and definition. And this ability takes the form of the 10 Sefirot, the 10 attributes. These are distinct energies that serve as the source of the literal differentiation of Biyah. Our soul also has an Atzilut component, the fact that it is a pure piece of God. Knowing this keeps us above water when things are dicey and gives us the ability to transform the world around us. We also learned how to use the Sefirot chart to help map our own unique soul personality, which can then give us insight as to where to invest our spiritual efforts. So practically takeaway, number one, follow your strengths. Number two, mind your weaknesses. And with all this, we'll change ourselves and the world for good. So the big idea that we learned about today is that God created a personality for himself, for us to relate to. And within us as well, our soul creates a personality for ourselves to interact with the world. Next week, please stay tuned. Same time, same channel, and hopefully the fancy computer and the fancy internet will be working a little better, where we discuss the infinite light. Above Atzilut and the 10 Sefirot lies a reality that surpasses all limitation. We call this Or Ein Sof, the infinite light. Please join us next week for a spectacular third session of the world of Kabbalah, as we learn about the infinite light and explore its human parallel in the form of willpower. You are not going to want to miss that. Thank you all, and please let me know if there's anything. Oh, look at that. We have 1 minute and 20 seconds to spare. Well done, even with the interruptions in the beginning. Thank you all for being here. We're going to go around and ask if you could share something that you learned. And while we do that, if there's something that you wanted more clarity on, please let me know as well. Auntie Nina, are we able to hear you now? No, I'm not sure why the sound isn't working, but we love you. I'm very happy to see you. Thank you. And Joan, is there something that you are taking away from today's lesson?
Actually, your last statement just blew me away. That there is infinite light within us. That we have away.
Yes, beautiful. So stay tuned for next week. Next week, we're going to take a much deeper dive into that. Thank you, Joan. And Silvina, is there something in particular that you enjoyed or learned from today?
Well, I enjoy a lot. Thank you so much. And I like the way that you said that the soul are the key to the spiritual mission.
Beautiful. Okay, Silvina, can I have them send the book to your address in Orlando?
No, the address in Oakland is good.
Yeah, and
because I'm here from Monday to Thursday, so I would prefer to receive it at home.
What happens if it's not going to get there before Monday? Meaning if it doesn't get to your house before Sunday, then you won't have it for next week.
But are you sending by mail, or are you delivering, or are you bringing home?
By mail. We'll send it in the mail.
It should be there though. On tomorrow, on Friday, I'm going to Oakland and should be there, or I can pick up to your place if you haven't send it to me.
It's shipping from New York. I'm not sure why they didn't send it out yet, so I wanted to confirm which address is the best.
Yeah, the Oakland Park.
Okay. Perfect.
Because I'm scared. Do you know when did they send it, or if you can track it?
I think that they didn't send it yet. Like the second batch didn't go out yet. So I'm gonna check on it tonight and see what's going on.
So on average, how many? So depending when they are shipping and how many days it will take.
Right. If they ship it tomorrow, it should arrive on Saturday, I think.
So I will be Saturday and Sunday.
Saturday and Sunday will be home. Okay, worst comes to worst, we'll figure something else out. And Joan, it's gonna go to your house. And then hopefully everything will be calm and clear, cool and collected.
Yeah, hopefully we'll arrive good.
Yes. Okay.
Well, have a nice night.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining. Thank you all. And thank you to my phone for working for us. Wishing everybody a wonderful evening.
Thank you. See you next week.
Okay, take care.
Can you order to your home, and that way I can pick it up on Sunday?
I can order it to my house, yeah. I can do that.
Yeah, but the thing is, on Wednesdays, I am here on Wednesdays. So
you know
anyway,
what? Let me order it to my home. Let me order it to my home. I'll have them send it to my home, and then worst comes to worst, I can send it from here to Orlando. It should take next day.
Okay. That could work good.
Let's do
I
that.
will give you the address in Titusville. Okay, I will give you the address.
Let's see first if it comes to me, then if it comes to me in time, and then we'll meet. And if not, then I'll send it from me to you in Titusville.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. All the best, and take care.